of the show. And kind of shaky there for a minute. Had a lot of stuff going on. Couldn't quite get my stuff scheduled, but we in here. Episode 2, the first of the year. This should be airing on New Year's, actually. Let me check my schedule right quick. Yeah, this is going to be airing on the first day of the year. So this is the first of the year, second episode of the show. And, we keeping this thing rolling as planned. So, pat on the back again. We made it happen. Man, I've been working tirelessly to get a film ready for distribution by this deadline. And just dealing with everything with that process. You need so many documents, all this and that in order to satisfy your distribution requirements. So I've just been, really working on that. And, I've turned a series of mine called Down Bad into a movie. So I've been working, getting all of that in order among releasing another one of my films, Succuba, officially. So, I've been very busy doing a lot of stuff. And, it's a blessing to be busy. But being busy is still being busy. So had to fit out time to get this second episode of this podcast together. And we made it. So this is episode 2. The topic of this podcast episode will be writing a producible script. Writing a producible script. The script is the foundation for everything. If you don't have a story or script, you don't have anything. I mean, you have things out there called scriptments, where you basically improv beat points of a script, but you still got to have ideas to guide that vision all the way to the end. So nothing, the point of what I'm saying is nothing is done without a story. And that story has to be producible as a low budget filmmaker. So that's what we're going to talk about today, because, I've, gotten to a point to where I can make my films using the same ideology. And, I'm going to help a few of y'all out there with that same thing. So just stay tuned. Like I said, y'all stick with us. Subscribe on my YouTube, Misguided Perceptions, or at Misguided Perceptions, which is my production company. You'll find everything we're doing on YouTube. The podcast will be posted on there. We got some narrative works, some shows that I'm working on that will be exclusively posted on my YouTube. Working on a few things there. And you can follow me on all of my social media that you can find here at the bottom of this pretty little scroller. Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, at Guerilla Filmer. And, follow me, stay tuned. And, we're going to talk about how to make some scripts. So, first thing, whenever you're writing, what helps me is always coming up with what kind of story would I want to write? What am I passionate about? All right. Me personally, I'm a Quentin Tarantino fan. Like, that's my number one director, as you can see right here. Pulp Fiction, got it framed in the background. Got Tarantino stuff all over here. That's my guy. But early on or very quickly, I had to realize that although I'm a fan of his work, it's not necessarily a route that I should follow. A lot of my stuff has some some Tarantino nods and this and that, but for me to find my own voice, it took a few projects, and to go after what I'm truly passionate about. So you as a writer, you have to figure out first, what are you truly passionate about? You may be versatile. I'm a very versatile writer. I feel like I can write anything. But what are you passionate about? Because when it gets hard, when that negativity comes in, what'll keep you going is the passion. So you need to be passionate first and foremost about whatever it is you're writing. You have to be. So, where I got caught into it a lot of times is I'm thinking business over the project. I'm already thinking about who's going to like this project. How can I market this project? All of this and that. And a lot of times, which that is great thinking as an indie filmmaker, that is great thinking. You never want to produce nothing that's going to go nowhere. You need to have somebody to give it to. But at the same time, a lot of those projects I didn't really love. I was just writing for the money. And a lot of those projects, I believe you can kind of tell that I was just doing it to do it, because I'm just looking for the bag. I was writing for the dollar. And I didn't really, care too much about what I was making. So you have to be passionate about whatever it is you write. And then you have to think, all right, I got this idea. I want to write this idea about this and that. What do I have to make it happen? I always want to start with that. You don't, even if you're just a screenwriter and you're not a filmmaker like myself, the likelihood of you getting a script that's produced on the lower budget level is very much higher than on the major level. Still write your major scripts, shoot for the stars, but also write some lower budget stuff to kind of start getting your name out there, to start getting works produced. And the way to do that is to lower that threshold a little bit, the stuff it'll take to make those films. Action films are usually the number one no-no in the low budget realm. You can get by with doing action films. You can get effects, and you can do little tricks, speeding it up and stuff to make action somewhat more presentable without using all these crazy stunts and stuff. Or you can be doing stunts on set and risk hurting people with amateurs. Action is usually a no-go. And me personally, like, I'm a practical effects person. And a lot of these effects that you can add digitally, I mean, they stick out to me like a sore thumb. And they bother me. They almost take me out of the story. So I hate, unless they're extremely well done, which costs more money. To get a great VFX artist is some of the most expensive things out there. I usually myself try to stay away from action. Now, if you're a kung fu artist, and you have a bunch of people, friends, wrestlers or something, like you're used to doing stunts, and that's in your circle, hey, you can make an action film and make it believable. But you have those resources. You have those resources. You have friends and wrestler friends and kung fu friends that they know how to fight, and they know how to make things believable without actually putting yourselves in harm. You know how to fall correctly. Then you can make an action film because you have those resources. And that's what I'm talking about from the very start of this idea, you got to have the resources in order to make whatever it is you're making believable. So if you're, I would say stay away from action, but if you have the resource to make action, you can make a great action film. If you don't have those resources, you got drama, probably your number one. Comedy. And comedy is a very hard genre to write for, because comedy is so subjective. You have, I'm a person, I like dark humor. I like crude comedy. It's this movie called The Greasy Strangler. No free plugs, but that's a plug there. Crazy movie. One of the crudest movies out there. Crazy movie. And I freaking love that movie. I mean, I laughed from beginning to end. And I watched that movie with my brother. And my brother, the whole time, he's sitting there looking like, what's wrong with you, dude? Something wrong with you? This is gross. But I'm dying laughing. Our sense of humor is totally different. It's almost one side of each spectrum. And with comedy, if you're going to write comedy, you have to know that, unless it's going to be just some simple comedy that, the most of everybody is going to find funny. If you're going to go more into the dark humor or edgy humor, you might get a lot of negative feedback until you find those people that enjoy that type of work. You got, rom-coms and stuff like that, which kind of get a lot of negative flack, but horror films, some of the most budget-friendly projects that you can produce is horror films, and that's for a reason. You can literally make a horror film with one person if you write it well enough. One person, one location. Will it affect how good that is? It really matters on your creativity, and it matters on you as a writer. You can make it very interesting. And that's why you'll see a lot more low budget indie horror films than you will of any other genre, because simply the horror itself, that what is it, that unknown plays a character in the film. Whereas in a drama or a romantic drama, you need characters to make that come to life. So, those are some of the most, forgiving genres, if I can say it that way, when it comes to budget. And, you want to think of that. You want to stay within a genre. You don't want to mix and mash too much. But you want to stay within those genres and write whatever it is that you're trying to get out. And then you want to think about locations. What locations do you have access to? Where your aunt lets you, use the house for a couple hours. Will you be able to, with whatever time frame your aunt going to allow you to film there, will you be able to shoot what you need to shoot realistically? Will your friend let you use his office building downtown? Maybe you can go knock on a few doors and ask a few questions. Hey, you mind if we shoot here? We're doing such and such. And do you mind if we shoot a film, a couple scenes here, a couple hours? What do you have access to? And you also want to take care of whoever is the location you're shooting at. Don't be one of these a-holes out here that just go and mess up stuff, take stuff, move stuff, don't put it back. You want to leave that place better and cleaner than you did when you came. Don't ever want to burn bridges as far as locations as a low budget filmmaker, because it's hard. Probably one of the hardest things whenever you're trying to make a story is finding locations. So respect their locations, but first you have to find them. So what locations do I have access to for this story? That's one question there. Will you have to rent locations? Because if you do, that budget is going to keep going up because locations aren't cheap. And once you get that in mind, then you can move to the next process. How many characters can I put in this story? Who do I know that can play these characters? Will I be able to find the type of characters I need here locally? Or will I have to, possibly go to the next city, or, will I have to fly people in? All that, those questions, the answers to those questions, if that budget's gonna balloon down, what? You have to know the answers to those questions to keep your overhead low. Because the game is producing high quality content while keeping that overhead low. If you're going broke making the film, you're doing it wrong. It's that balance that you got to work with when you're thinking of producing a script. So you want to, find cast members, if you can, preferably who live either in the same town as you or in the same vicinity. I work with quite a few of the same actors, mostly because over the years, and that's another thing, dependable cast. Because a cast member who isn't dependable will cost you money as well. I've had, over my numerous productions, every single production I've had a cast member that didn't show. Just didn't show up to set. No call, no show, basically. Or the day of, or the day before, for some reason they dropped out of production. And sickness happens. You can wake up sick anywhere, anytime. But is it, if it's just you stayed up last night drinking and you got hungover, or something that was, totally preventable, or, you woke up with a cough or something like that, and you decide you don't want to show up to set, it's nothing COVID related or nothing. You're kind of putting that production in a chokehold. And I've had that so many instances. I've had them call me the day before, "Hey man, I ain't feeling good. I got a headache." And I'm thinking to myself, like, is that headache is bad for you not enough to come to set? Can we get you some Tylenol? I'll pay for it. You kind of have an important role that I can't recast right now. You have to know who you're working with. And I work with some of the same actors, for one, because I trust them. And usually when I'm thinking of, I'm such a visual writer myself that I picture them already in those roles. So it's just an instant fit. So I know that I don't have to audition them or nothing. But mostly it's because I trust them. Because this last production, Succuba, because I've been burnt so many times, I can kind of feel it out. Like whenever I'm getting, I'm not getting certain vibes from certain casts. And I cast this person, first time working with them. And I kind of had a gut feeling like this person's probably about to no call, no show me. So I kind of, the day before, asked my behind the scenes photographer who has acting experience, would you mind, in case this happens, would you mind jumping in and taking this role? And luckily, that person was happy to do so, to keep us from derailing. And, you got to have people like that available. You always got to have a plan B too. Sometimes that doesn't work being low budget, but that's just the risk of the game. But that's something that I've learned. So you always got to have a dependable cast, cast that's close to you, because like I said, those costs will balloon on you. If you have to get to the point to where you have to start flying in cast members to, specific characters, I just hope you have the money to do so. So you really want to start casting locally. That will bring your costs down so much. If they're right there in your city, you can just give them some gas money. You don't have to lodge them. That keeps your costs way down. Throat scratching. I think I need some coffee. So, that's really what you want to look for. Here I stay in Jackson, and I'm starting to meet some people who are seriously interested in acting. Back when I did this show called The Sticks, it was a lot of people here locally that wanted to act. And a lot of them in that show are local, but I had a lot that didn't show. A lot that didn't show. Come time that call time, cold feet. And, I dealt with so much with that show, man, that it almost broke me. It almost did. And tried to reschedule that show for season 2s. I wrote 3 different scripts for that show to produce a season 2. And to be honest with you, cast is the reason why that show never got back off the ground. Season 2, the first draft, this was 2020, COVID. So, we ended up having to postpone it because we didn't know what COVID was. And, slowly cast members started dropping out. Hey, I'm not, this and that. And, this and that would happen. So I had to rewrite it. Rewrote a second draft, whole new script, basically a whole new storyline. Cast that joint. And then, for many different reasons, some of the main characters I'd already cast, this and that would happen. Here we go again. Rewrite it again. And, I had, some of my main cast would either, moved or, stuff like this by now. And the cost of producing that series just kept going up. I kept having to recast people. So I was like, man, it's one that got away from me. And I hate whenever I announce something, whenever something is already in motion. I hate bringing that to a stop. I hate feeling like I aborted on it. I hate it. Nothing, whenever I announce something, whenever I get something going, I'm a stickler for finishing what I start. And that's something that still bothers me, that I never got to finish that series 3 times. And, a lot of the issues were, just I got too ambitious with my cast. And you kind of have to temper those expectations when you're writing as low budget. You have to. It can feel like it's handicapping your creativity, but in a way it forces you to be creative within those means, if that makes sense. It forces you to, although I'm in this small room, this is all I got to work with. So how do I make this small room work? It forces you to be creative. Although you can't go crazy and, have all the explosions and, 100 cast members and this big action sequence that you want, you're forced to be creative within those means. And that can make you a better writer. So if you're, no matter if you're a filmmaker or just a screenwriter trying to get, your scripts produced, shrink that scale down a little bit. How would it be if I could make a romance, about, me driving on my way home or something from vacation or something. And, this hitchhiker I see on the side of the road, and, it turns into, you picking her up, and somehow, you two find you have something in common, and it blossoms among, this road trip home. It can be hard shooting around a moving car, but you can find equipment to help you do that, or shoot from within, or stop at certain places and shoot most of your scenes. But you have a car, you have two actors. Everybody has a car. Use your car. Two actors should be pretty relatively easily to find. The open road is free, and you can make you a nice little drama, little romance drama or something off of two actors in a car in the free open air. You just have to be creative. You have to think like, what if, and another thing that makes your stories always more interesting is you leaving a question, adding these questions, teasing the answers, but you always want the audience to keep watching. They want the answer to whatever that question that you presented earlier in the story. Tension. Tension and suspense. Keep them glued to it. If it's just a bunch of talking, nothing going on, you're going to lose them. They're going to start scrolling on the phone. So you have to keep them engaged to know what's going on, what's about to happen, in your stories. So you want to be able to introduce that while keeping that budget low. And there's many ways to do that. You have to write like a producer. You have to write with your business cap on. That's why I practice resource filmmaking. I write everything down, what I have access to. Okay, I can find access to this many locations. These cast members, and I already told me, man, I'm game whenever you got something you write. I got access to these type of props. I have access to this vehicle. All right. And then you put all that out in front of you, however you do it, either if you scribble it on paper or make little, index cards, you're looking at all this. And then with all these resources that you have in front of you, what can I make? What is it that I can write? What is it that I can produce and make, a great project? That is how you have to think of it. If you go, letting that wonderful creative mind of yours go and just start to writing, once you go through all that heart and pain of hours of writing and bringing that vision to life, you're going to get to the end of a script that you don't know how it's going to get produced. You're shopping it to industry professionals and your Facebook groups talking about you got a script that anybody looking for a script or something like that. And once they read the script, they're like, man, there's no way I can produce this for under $100,000 million. And you did all that work for a script that you can't sell or make. Lower that scale a little bit. Work within that box. Use that box as a challenge. How can I make this an awesome film, with all these limitations that are on me? And again, that's why you see horror films made on the indie level so much more. Because you can make a haunting film in one house with literally one character, where those unknown entities are a character in itself. And that, and they're easy to make. And they're effective. And it's an audience for those. So you kind of have to think of that whenever you're writing. First and foremost. You have to think of your resources. You have to think of your cast, who you're going to get to portray these characters. And something too, myself as a writer, I have a vision. I'm a very visual writer. And a lot of times, I work with certain people where they automatically, maybe it's just my subconscious, but they pop into my head for these roles. So a lot of times, I don't do casting calls personally. It's a lot of work. Casting calls are a lot of work, going through all those submissions and hundreds of submissions. And then you find somebody in there that you like, and then they deny the role after they submitted for it. Like, it's like, why did you even submit for the production if you didn't want this role? And then you deal with people who, like, I'm frustrated already thinking about it. I hate doing casting calls. So I usually just go directly to people I admire or I've worked with before and ask them, hey, I had you in mind for this role. Would you read it? If you like it, let me know. We'll do the paperwork stuff and get all that out the way, but read for it. If you like it, we'll work it out. And a lot of times you'll get people that say, hey, it's not for me. I appreciate you for reaching out, which is cool, which I appreciate that more than having a casting call and going through all this work, narrowing people down, and then pick the one person who submitted for that role, and then they decide they don't want it. And you went through all this work for nothing. It's a lot less. So that's my process. You may be the type of person who prefer casting calls and getting this pool of people to submit for your project. Whereas I'm more direct. I like reaching out to people just to kind of keep that work and that frustration and stress level down. Because one thing you'll figure out too is people do not read. You have to really accent stuff and be very descriptive in your casting calls, because people will just see something, that seems cool, and they won't read all the other specifications that has to do with that role, such as whatever you're looking for as far as race, age, and the qualifications. You have to work locally, or it may be a real only type of role. Like, you'll get that all the time. Because people just don't want to read, and usually that's a red flag for me too. If you couldn't read the directions of the submission, you probably can't read the directions in a script. You're probably kind of one of those that's kind of hard to work with. So I usually use that as a red flag too. Like, if you couldn't understand these directions that are in broad view, you probably can't understand directions elsewhere. So you have to, keep that in mind. If you out here networking and you're meeting actors, or you worked with actors before, especially if you're a small team. Now, if you have a casting director and producers and people who are willing for that, hey, do all the casting calls you can do. But as for me, I'm working with such a small team with either my brother or my wife, or somebody, when they can help. I just don't have time to do casting calls. So I like to reach out to cast. And a lot of times I'm thinking, when I write, all right, I need this type of character. Can I find that person here locally first? Okay, I can't. I might need to go an hour west to Memphis. Who can I find to fit this? Usually if I'm casting a project, I'm never flying anybody in unless it's something so specific that I have to. I'm never flying somebody in. I may lodge people, but it's usually a last resort. I'm gonna try to find somebody locally to keep my costs down. Because I'm a self-financer. I self-finance all my projects. So keeping the cost down is number one. And when you write, you don't want to get too locked into a vision of a certain character. Because being too locked in can be dangerous. So you kind of want to give your actors, if they, they meet certain parameters, you kind of want to give them the freedom to bring something else to that role. And that'll keep you, flexible as well, because, we just don't have it. You have to be flexible in the parameters of your limitations. And a lot of us are working with actors who also have regular jobs. So scheduling plays a part. Is this person available on weekends? Can I get this person on weekdays? And so much. All of that goes into casting. And I always tell a lot of my acting friends, especially on the low budget realm, don't get discouraged. You have to keep trying, because somebody like me, where my schedule is all over the place, I might need you to work weekends. I might need you to work weekdays. If your schedule doesn't work with a certain day that I have to shoot these scenes, I just can't cast you. Although you're perfect for this role. I mean, you're the perfect person. You have the schedules of so many other people. This actor here is available, but this actor isn't. This actor goes well with so much more of the story and other side characters, to where, all right, this actor's being cast is probably a little bit more important than this actor being cast. So I might have to replace this actor to work with this actor's schedule, and then cast everything that matches with my schedule and the schedule of the location owners. And I mean, you have all of this stuff that has to work together. And I see a lot of actors get discouraged over that. Like, I just can't get it. So much more goes into it than your talent, I promise you. Especially on the low budget realm, because we can't just block out dates on the calendar and say, all right, we're shooting this whole month of May. So be here and we're gonna make it happen. You have to work around so much stuff. So you have to keep that in mind. And I will always tell anybody, when you're writing a script, just make it producible. Think of your resources, think of your cast, think of your locations, think of your budget, think of what you have access to, and write your story around that. No matter what you're passionate about, write your story around that. And you will make a quality story within those limitations. And it will force you as a creative to work that creative muscle, to the way you don't need infinite resources to make a great story. If it's about a romance that started hitchhiking on the side of a lonely highway, you'll be able to make it happen. 2 characters in a car. So use that as a what's the word I'm looking for? As a advantage more than it is a disadvantage. A positive more than a negative. That you're able to work your writing muscle to keep something engaging, interesting, although it's 2 characters in a car for the majority of the story, or in and around a car, stopping at a park, something. You just have to use your creativity as a low budget filmmaker, low budget screenwriter, whatever you identify as. You have to write within a specific means, because movies are everywhere. Yeah, more and more filmmakers. Hollywood is Hollywood. If you want to mess with that game and those gatekeepers and trying to get there, it's more about who you know in that game. It's more about who you know in everything. But if you're the type of filmmaker like myself out here trying to make your own way, to continue making films, you can't go broke making them. Budget is by far superior when you're playing this game. And if you have no budget, you can't write as if you do. I've written films where I didn't have to go out and buy nothing. One of my most successful films, They Live in the Shadows. My friend's family had a cabin. I housed 2 actors at my house to keep down those costs. And We made that movie in like 4 or 5 days, 5 days, I think. One location film. Paid. All I had to do was pay to feed them, and we had a ball. And that's my most successful film at this current time. So you have to let your creativity, power you through a lot of those limitations. And I promise you can make a great project. Kind of all over the place, but still in the same box on how to write a producible script. And hopefully some of those little tidbits will help you if you're stuck trying to get a project off the ground. Good friend of mine has been trying to get this project of his off the ground. Man, what is it, 2022? At least since 2018. And, he's just so dead set on that. And I told him, like, just go back to the drawing board, rewrite the story, make it smaller. If it's not working this way, he's having cast drop out and this and that. If it's not working this way, just go back to the drawing board, man. Quit, because people are seeing you make this same casting call for this same project for like 5 years now. And, they're like, you're never going to get that made. You're still doing casting calls for that same project. It's making you look bad. It's making you look like somebody who can't get their vision through. Go back to the drawing board. But first keep you from dealing with that headache before you even put pen to paper or type a key on your keyboard. Think about what you have access to. Think about your resources. Think about who you could cast. Think about all of that. So when you finish that script, you're not dealing with these issues from the jump, and you'll save yourself a whole lot of headache. Think about that. Think about that. And you can make an awesome film, I promise you. You can get your film produced, I promise you. It's simple. Resource filmmaking. I live by it, and I'll probably be living by it for a while. But hey, I've made money doing it. So think about that. Whenever you're thinking that you got that itch to write, will I just be writing this to put it in the bin, or am I writing this to produce? Because if I'm writing this to produce it, it needs to be producible. I need to be able to sell this script because it won't be too expensive to make, or, minimal locations, minimal cast. You can never go wrong. You can never go wrong. So hopefully, a few of these tips helped somebody. It's the way I've made my films over the years. And, I've produced 8 feature films, 2 series, short films, and a lot of these same steps I've lived by, writing a producible script. So that's all I got to blab about today on this particular episode 2 of the Guerilla Filmer podcast. Still sticking to the bi-weekly schedule, posting every other Sunday on my YouTube channel. Misguided Perceptions is the YouTube channel. Please go like, share, subscribe, build that channel up so that I could continue to give you guys some awesome content. If you're watching this on Facebook watch, on my professional page, which is J Lockridge at Guerilla Filmer. Please like, comment, engage, ask some questions, share this podcast around, follow the page, like the page. Your engagement means a lot in this social media world. This algorithm will only push and show favor to people who are getting the engagement. So your engagement under these videos and posts means more than just a like and a comment. But those likes and comments mean a lot. I promise you it does. It might have been a little bit confusing, but at the same thing, you know, it made a lot of sense, I think. But anywho, I'm about to get on with my day and let you beautiful people get on with yours. Just remember, when you're creating, limit those expectations, boost that creativity, and make something worthwhile. And let's all get out here and support each other and continue making great films. And until next time, it is me, Dron Lockridge, J Lockridge, whatever you want to call me, the Guerilla Filmer. And this is episode 2, and I'll see you guys with another topic in 2 weeks. Deuces.